Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them. Hello, weirdos! Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, the podcast where we get to talk to the weird, wonderful creators behind role-playing games we love. And today I have a special guest, a friend of mine, who has been having collaborated with me and supporting me, and we're having trading ideas and talking to each other. His name is Richie Buzzkill. Well, that's not his name, but that's his nickname in this RPG space, and he's the host of the Full Metal RPG podcast. He's a person that is fascinated by gadgets. He loves sound, and he always messes up with sound gadgets and technology. He's also an engineer, and he says he's wanted to be an artist but had a soul as an engineer. And we talked about all the different hobbies he pursued, the kind of interesting stuff and weird stuff he pursues in his games and his podcast. And we talked about all weird things we are fascinated about, such as art, RPGs, game, weird stuff, how we do with procrastination, how he says he's a master procrastinator and how that affects his daily life. It was a really cool chat, really got really deep and weird, and I hope you like it as much as I did. And let's get weird with Richie Buzzkill. Hey Richie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I'm especially happy to be talking to you because we have had some great conversations over the years, especially including the recording ones, because we've definitely talked offline a lot. So I'm really happy to be here and talk to you today. So,
yeah, well, we've been friends like basically since I started being here in the RPG indie space, and we talked so much. I had a great time meeting you at Gen Con this year. We hang out, we got to meet a lot of cool people. It was amazing. But Richie, for people that are at home are not really know who you are, but I also like to hear from the people that come here, for them to introduce themselves, for them find themselves in their own words. So who is Rich Buzzkill? What do you do? And if you can share just a small weird detail about yourself, it can be the way you do coffee, the way you choose your clothes, or like the way I don't know, you brush your teeth, any kind of specific habits you have that can share with us.
Yeah, I'm Richie Buzzkill. If anybody knows who I am, I do Full Metal RPG, which is a podcast that's been going since 2016. It was started by Brendan Carey, and I came on as his friend, and then I took over the show. So if you look up Full Metal RPG, you're probably gonna see my silly face. But I have been playing role-playing games for, gosh, it's been 26 years now. So that's pretty weird that I'm still doing this thing after so long. But I think the weirdest thing about me is like I feel like I have hobby ADD, where I just have to like continuously start and change hobbies. But this is the only role-playing games is the only hobby that I've consistently done to as much as I can, week in and week out, day and date. So
Wow, hobby ADHD. But what other hobbies have you practiced along the years, and can you share the weirdest ones? Like, well, I can't believe I've done this or something like this.
So there was definitely a time when I did stamp collecting.
Okay.
And that's not really that weird, except when you think about
it can be great art in stamps.
Yeah. I did. I've done photography. I've done playing. Well, you can see the guitar on my wall behind me. That's I've tried that. That is a lot of fun, but I'm not very good at it. I did scale models, not just miniatures for games, but scale models was one of my hobbies. I've done a lot of drawing, a lot of different trying to audio engineering is probably one of the weirdest hobbies I have. It's like I am literally unpaid, and it wasn't because like it wasn't like I was doing just for the podcast or whatever. Like before I even did a podcast, like I was just playing with like trying to do sound music, like noise music. So like I would
Oh,
record a bunch of noises and then try to make them percussive and try to make them into that's long gone on an old hard drive or something like that. But is how I started learning how to do audio engineering. So
what kind of sounds would you record and try to make music? Like doing the dishes, or like a fork splitting in a glass, or like everyday noise, and would try to make music out of it somehow? Or
yeah,
is there any place we can hear this
no,
music you
no,
made?
there's
Okay.
this is pre being uploaded uploading a song to the internet. I'm talking like maybe
Yeah.
2002, 2003. Like
But do you
that
still
was when
have it anywhere?
no, I don't,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But it was like the phone ringing, the sound of, and this one I didn't record in person, but the sound of a gun cocking, like the different doors opening, closing, like it. This was a experimental phase to see if I had any kind of like just being able to use the computer to take found noises and make a thing. And it it I was more interested in making patterns in the audio. I spent more time making patterns of sound in the audio in Audacity than I was actually making good music. So like it took a long time, and it was more of like I loved the patterns of what the little sounds were making in, you know, the different tracks.
I see.
And so it was more of it turned into more of a visual editor than an audio editor, because the end result was like I said, not worth uploading in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, curiosity, and always we can find nuggets, even in small things, I think. But Richie, I see you dabbled for a lot of art expressions. Uh, do you see yourself as an artist? Do you explore as you explore various mediums, various ways of like expressing yourself or discovering or playing with stuff? Uh, how do you see yourself in relation with this? Because I think
I
curiosity is a natural aspect of an artist. Like a lot of us, like I write, I do illustrations, I did music too. A lot of other creators do the same. Like Gabriel Quiroga does the same thing. He dabbles with music, arts, and writing.
I think that like I've always kind of wanted to be an artist, but I kind of have the soul of an engineer. So like it's the thing that I saw when I first when I was a kid. My dad's a machinist, and lovely sounds and things he can that just watching someone machining is just one of the most fascinating things I can watch. But like um he brought me to work and showed me the guys draw, because I was always drawing as a kid, and showed me somebody drawing gears in the computer, and instantaneously I knew exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life for money. But I've always been creating stuff, but it was like this like logical brain and art brain, like, you know, logical brain said, well, I feel like I have more talent over here, so that's the direction I'm going to go. And I always loved creating stuff, but you know, I just don't feel like I have a lot of true talent that can shine through, or charisma that really brings that to can make people like sit and understand, you know, appreciate that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I kind of feel what you're saying, but do you think this has something to do with a little fear of like being vulnerable to show this kind of? I kind of feel everybody can be, but has tried to explore this. I've always have this comfort with computers and math, and then do you think that the predictability of engineering and math and formulas make us feel a little bit safer than art and expression, which can be a lot more fluid, it's a lot more subjective?
Yeah, no, I agree with that because, like, I mean, and when I was a kid, I was very introverted. People always are shocked when I say that, and I'm still introverted. It's just
Me too.
I can, yeah, I know you are too, and that's always it's amazing to me as well because you're one of the most charismatic guys I've found on, in the space, and you're out there and you're always talking, and but I guess I just kind of feel like I put things out. Like I still have, I had a website with my photography on it. I have, a Flickr site, and photography is probably the biggest artistic endeavor I ever undertook. Like I did, 365 projects. I have a book that I made of the photography I made that year. I always love the visual nature. Like I am a very visual person, and photography came, I feel like, pretty naturally to me, but I just feel like I don't have this, like, and this is something I just don't have a drive to do that is the only thing I'm going to do, right? And I feel
Oh
like that
yeah,
for art, I feel like if you really want to take it to its maximum height, like this is the only thing I can do, is kind of what I
mm,
hear from a lot of artists. And I feel
I don't
like
know. Yeah,
go ahead.
it has this debate a lot about it. Like artists have to be in this niche, but I see a lot of, especially today, a lot of movement for you to be authentic as an artist, to explore your passions. So you can be a painter this year and then a musician that year, and you can explore all these ways. And what connects your art is that you are doing it and you're expressing. So there will be themes. Your art will be connected, even if every year you do something different, there will be something connecting it. I think artists can be dabblers too, and what will connect their art, not necessarily the medium, but maybe the themes, stuff that recurs on their art. I think we
Yeah.
had all this vision that we have to do. Oh, I have to live for my art, and that can be very unhealthy too.
Oh yeah, no, I mean any obsession, anything that you say that this is the only thing I can do is
Uh,
can get very unhealthy. I agree. But I just it nothing, I guess I put myself out there and nothing really got traction in any way that I could build
uh,
on.
I
And
see.
and maybe it's because I don't know how to do that stuff. I mean, it explains, but I don't know um where how I could, I mean, like I really do enjoy doing the art and taking the photographs and taking the doing these
Yeah,
playing for myself. And then when I kind of put these things out there, I don't see, and
I
it shouldn't
see.
matter, but like getting a
Yeah,
reaction, like I feel like getting a reaction is a part of the
it's
feedback,
hard.
and it's really hard. Like I
Yeah,
completely agree, and that's why I don't feel like, like I could be, like, I do art, but I don't feel like I will be like
exposing it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So in some ways I've just kind of put my, like, I
yeah,
still do a miniature painting as kind of like current hobby art. And I mean, I do get some reaction from when I paint miniatures, but it's, like cool, but it's not
yeah.
like, I'm not like these, I haven't done 20,000 hours to get to the point. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a style, but I don't get a reaction from that as much as, so
Yeah.
like, cool, from a
Yeah,
couple
it's
people.
hard for artists. I suffered a lot from it, like expecting doing art and expecting reaction, and it's very natural for us to do this. But I also realized that's very bad for me. I was expecting reactions and waiting for something to get back to me, and I even had like a burnout because all this kind of stuff. Not only this, but I had to, I don't know, infuse in myself the idea that I'm doing this because I like creating, and I'm sharing even just one, or I don't know, sharing because I want to share. People, I don't know. But I understand this, expecting this feedback. But I think for an artist, if we can focus on the process, on the pleasure of creating, I think it can be even better for us, like just having fun with creating and sharing and even forgetting sometimes. Oh, I don't care, because it has a lot of to do with I suffer from anxiety too, and I read a lot about the stoicism, and it has a lot to do with this letting go of other people expectations and opinions. Otherwise we're always anxious because we're always trying to figure out what people are thinking about us, and sometimes they aren't at all, or sometimes they really love their work, but they never think about, oh, they don't want to hear me saying they like my work. I think we get too
Well,
much in our heads thinking about this stuff. And
absolutely.
I'm not trying to pressure you into doing art, but I don't know. I have this idea that art kind of heals us and help us with ourselves, and I love seeing people doing the stuff they love, doing their art and sharing, because I don't know. I see more of them, and I see how happy they are doing this stuff, and that's why I was asking you. And I don't. You understand? I'm
No.
not trying to pressure or
Oh yeah,
anything.
no,
Just
I understand. And like I can't help but try to produce art that I like, that I enjoy making. Like even if I don't necessarily enjoy the end product, like I enjoyed the process. And that's at least something, right?
yeah,
Um and like I have pictures and stuff I've taken blown up and put on my wall, right? So
nice,
every day I look at those things and I enjoy
awesome.
them. Like, and it's one of those things where like I have different excuses as to why things don't take off. And like I prefer to take pictures without people in them. I want to look at the
Yeah,
buildings and the rocks and and I I understand if I was to be a commercial photographer, it would be more about like, okay, how do I make money? Well, people make me money, so I'm going to take pictures of people. And people have really loved some of the portraits I've done, that they've said that they
yeah,
love this portrait, right? Whether or not, in my head, like, well, is it, but they seem to like say, oh, this is the only photograph that like I really think that came out well of me, right? Because that a lot of people don't, even in the day of cell phones, like I feel like a lot of people still don't get a good picture of themselves. Like it's a weird thing. Like they get pictures of themselves all the time, but they don't necessarily get a good picture of themselves. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's the kind of stuff I think about. And like I like to take pictures of buildings because they don't because they have no judgment there.
yeah. And I don't know. I think buildings and environment and landscapes, they have this more permanent image. They make us they make us see how relatively all of this bullshit we are on is. So I like just especially pictures of like abandoned buildings, like ruins and this kind of stuff. It's kind of calms me down somehow. It's relaxing.
It's
I
one of
don't know.
those things where, and to take it back into role playing a little bit, is it's one of those things where I really wish I kind of like I would like role playing games to maybe entertain the idea of having photography in them. Because every time somebody has like a book with photography in it, it kind of gets dumped on a little bit, like a RPG with photography in it. Like
Yeah.
the major one, and probably rightfully so, was like Cyberpunk 3 V3, which was
Mm.
everybody forgets that existed, but it was really bad because it was it looked like somebody's art project where they took like Barbie dolls and Ken dolls and dressed them up as edge runners and kind of like it. And
Yeah.
I find that fascinating, like a fascinating idea. I don't think it was an amazing end result, but it's a fascinating idea that I think has not been explored, mostly probably because photography can be too real And
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of like modern games don't tend to be big. Historical games tend to not be big. Like anything where you could do photography tends, I mean, to do fantasy photography takes a lot
Yeah.
of work, right? You can do it. I've seen it. There can be some marvelous stuff, but it doesn't quite, I don't think it quite captures, everybody loves those old the line drawings and the old TSR stuff, and they're gorgeous and I love them too, but like having a different take, I love if an RPG has a different take on the art.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I have so many books behind me is like, oh, I love this art, whether or not I'm gonna be living this game or not. I love this art, so I have to have
Yeah.
it. So
I love to see the vision of this different creator for maybe the same fantasy world we're used to. But sometimes the same game can feel so much different depending on the art you have in it. And yeah, I don't know. Do you think they don't use photos in RPGs mainly because of cost? Or it could be like other reason. I don't know, but I kind of feel illustrations lend itself more to imagination because it's basically it's symbols, you know. You're not seeing real people and real monsters. You're seeing symbology of this representation of these things. So it's easier for you to project imaginations and stories because photos being photorealistic, we kind of take it for what it is.
yeah, I think so. And now I remember there's another example, which is Vampire Fifth Edition, and there was a lot of what I'd like to call fashion influenced photography in that book. Like there's illustrated characters and stuff in there, but the fashion influenced photography is kind of like the chapter heads, and I can see there is a cost increase, but I also think that, and I understand indie, costs is prohibitive, but like when you're White Wolf, right, and you're part of $1 billion corporation, like spend the money and make it good. And I think that's what they tried. They had a take. I just think a lot of people didn't like that take. And
Yeah.
they there's something about like, because people are attached to the old Broad Street art and the old 90s art, which is amazing.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
whole,
beautiful.
it's a
Yeah.
beautiful, like people still wear the t-shirts, and like
Yeah.
it is something that evokes an era, right? And they were trying to, but I don't think they were successful in evoking the era of when that came out, right? I think that's when you do photography, it's somewhat in the moment, right? You're capturing a
Yeah.
moment, but when you're doing an art project to invoke a moment, you're going to be judged by when that book comes out. Almost in the long run, we may come back around and go, oh wow, those really were interesting photographs. Like there's a lot of stuff that, like the classic, like people of really didn't care for this when it came out, and then it like 20 years later, 30 years later, it becomes like, oh my god, this was amazing. Like why is this so rare? Well, because nobody liked it at the time, right? So it'll be
Yeah.
judged in the long run. But like I do think that they were trying to flip things on its head, and I just don't think it quite got traction with many people. Like I think there's really interesting stuff in there from even from a gameplay, but also from an art standpoint. But I just don't think it captured the audience.
Yeah.
It's what I like to call the Star Wars problem, which is there were expectations for a big thing coming out,
Yeah.
like to be this amazing thing, and then when it came out and it was just the thing,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Nothing will please everybody, you know. Even the Ramones, which is the best bands of all time. Not everybody likes the Ramones, you know. And so
Well, I
it's
don't think everybody
impossible, you know.
should like the Ramones. Like if everybody
Well,
liked the Ramones, I don't think the Ramones would be the Ramones. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I know.
Like
I'm joking, but yeah. Yeah.
but it's a fine example. I don't
Yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure. I think I don't like photography in games so much because of the thing I said, like projecting imagination, but I like to see more uh because it's something different. Like I like it the aesthetic of Vampire Fifth Edition. I know there's a lot of discussion about elements of the game that could be problematic. I didn't got too much into it because I didn't have a really good relationship with World of Darkness, so I didn't get into the new games. But I get it, and I think they try to do something new, something a little bit more innovative for this game that was very innovative, that tried to do something new with the mechanics, and I think they did went to the right way, but because it's such a big game and there is such a massive public for it, uh, they even if they did everything right, they will have a pushback because it's different, because it's different for what people would expect. So no matter how good it is, they'll face a pushback for it because it breaks, tradition or something.
Yeah, and I think they were trying to, in some ways, I think it was part laziness. The problematic part of it is part laziness, part like nobody, like in these big books, a lot of people, I don't think, read the whole thing before as they edit it.
Yeah.
Like they just edit it, like, and it's the same thing with, I think, a couple of the last fifth edition books of D&D is like there's been some problems they found out people after people started reading it. Like it's like nobody read this book, right? It is sort
Yeah.
of the laziness that comes from some of the bigger publishers nowadays, which is sort of sad to see because it's like you guys got the most money. Like you can spend the money to have a third party read this thing and give you notes. Like you're never going to find everything. I mean, I recently had
Yeah.
a Viking game. I interviewed some people about a Viking game, and of course, they sent me the book beforehand, and I kind of read through it, and I was like, I didn't see anything particular, and then after I published the episode, then somebody who is really into Viking stuff was like, "Hey, there's some issues with what they said and what was in the book," and I'm like, and I'm gonna put that episode out again, but I'm gonna put a predicate on it to say, hey, I looked at this. I don't think there's any harm here, but if you be the judge, right? Because I think that we need to not bury stuff, but also talk about it still. So
Yeah,
I
I
just
think
don't
you
think
have
they
to be
understood my
intentional.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
I think
think you have
that's
to be
the
intentional.
missing. I think that's what's missing from a lot of big games is intention right now.
Yeah.
And I think that like the golden age of what I like to, this last decade or so is sort of like, I think, winding down a little bit from a big game perspective. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Well, Richie, you talked about doing Full Metal RPG, and I would like to ask you a little bit about it for people to have some familiarity with this. So, what is Full Metal RPG? What is the show about? And what would be the weirdest thing about the podcast you do?
Well, Full Metal RPG is a show where kind of like we like to, have real conversations about topics and subjects and not just like, and there was a time frame when we were doing a lot of Kickstarters, but right now it's about trying to find interesting subjects and talk about them in role-playing games. And I think that role-playing games are a very powerful tool for people and I say tool as in not just like, oh, it's a tool you should be able to use to do things, but so much as there are situations, therapeutic. Oh, you talk about, RPG therapeutics. We've talked about RPGs in prison. We talked about different genres of RPGs and how they are how they're political in certain ways and how we can maybe look at the how this is affected by pulp art that was affected by Victorian pulps, that basically this is kind of a colonization thing, right? I that's what it is right now, is just like trying to talk about these subjects, not just like, I was thinking about like we should talk more about fun stuff, but like I think it's important when we're having fun to
Yeah.
to
Fuck
know
fun.
about, yeah, to know about what you're doing, so that
Yeah.
you know, in more than just like, hey, and I
Yeah,
love
I
a
think
good
that's
mirror
great.
pretzels
Yeah.
game, but yeah.
You're doing something different. You're exploring. You're getting deep with it. You're getting weird. That's great. Uh, I would like also to suggest maybe RPGs as a medium of self-expression, like for the creators. That could be a theme. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and
Just a
that's a
suggestion. Yeah.
beautiful, that I'll add it to the list. We should maybe talk about that after this. But and then the weirdest thing about this, about Full Metal RPG, is, and this is maybe a bit of a downer, that we did not make our own subreddit, and
Wow.
the guy that made it, which would have been amazing if someone, a fan, made a subreddit, but it turns out the guy that made the subreddit hates us. So he was writing send downs of the episodes.
What's
So he would
sundowns?
so like he would just basically like uh disagree entirely, but like
Oh, okay.
in a very, this guy is a real,
Argumentative. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, a real piece of work. This guy's a real piece of work. And I think I always, in my
He's
head,
a
I have
fan.
this like,
He's
I
a
think he was
fan.
a fan of Brendan. Like I feel like he was in love with
Someone
Brendan.
who dedicates that much time to something is a fan. It
I
has
mean,
to be.
he's sort of stopped now, but like
Okay.
it's still up there. But like I feel like he was a fan of Brendan, and then when Brendan came out as to not be a somehow be a libertarian Ubermunch,
Oh,
it kind of
okay.
broke his heart. And the fact that like we figure out who, I think we figure out who it was, because we banned a guy off, banned a couple people from our Facebook page because they were saying some really shitty things. And then we kind of like looked at their Facebook profiles, and this guy who's on Reddit saying a lot of shit, that lives on Reddit, uh who, what he liked and what he was saying, and kind of correlated them. But it doesn't really matter. Like I had a conversation with the dude and be like, hey, late when he finally commented on the YouTube channel, um
Mhm.
and I think I finally kind of diffused, but that's probably the weirdest thing about it. I mean, other than the fact that we
Okay.
talk about
Yeah.
stuff that may not be fun about a fun hobby.
No, but yeah, I mean, it can be fun to learn about this. I mean, I have this learning is fun kind of thing, but yeah. Wow, that's a story.
Yeah, I
So,
did tell that story on the show, by the way. So like, it's not a.
uh,
We tried to keep that wrapped up for a while, and then it's like, whatever. Just I got to talk
yeah,
about this.
it's
It's
interesting.
like
Yeah.
we are role players tend to be storytellers, and if I can't tell a story, it kind of weighs on me. So I have to. Sometimes it
Yeah.
just like, it's silly. I should just not talk about some things that would be better off. But like, I can't
Yeah,
not talk about things. So that's why I
of
end up still
course.
being a podcaster. But anyways.
Rich, do you have any like process or ritual for creating things, like for when you do your podcast or when you do your paintings or your photography? Do you have any creative habits that helps you put in the mind space to do what you do?
Procrastination to panic. That's probably my most creative process, is like it's a methodology that I use since school. I'm not
It's a mineral technique. It's being thought through generations and you know. Yeah.
absolutely, and that's um realistically, I I wish I was better at it, because that's not the procrastination. I'm very good at procrastination. Like
Very
I'm a
good, yeah.
master procrastinator. Uh and then I get in my own head because I forgot to do something, and then like it circles around, and eventually it's like, oh shit, it's due, I better like get going. And it's just like getting the blood pumping a little bit. With other arts, um it's setting a time every day. Like when I was photography, but not so much photography, but like There was a time during the pandemic where I was like, I need to get out of the house every day. I'm gonna just go take a picture every day, walk around the neighborhood, and just take a picture and I post
Nice.
that pic, whatever. And it ended up being flowers every day for like 2 months on my Instagram. So like that was kind of it was just like I was walking around because I live in kind of a weird part of Arizona where these people have made like kind of more of a different climate in the middle of Tempe. It's not a desert climate. It's sort of this weird Mediterranean thing that they've all kind of landscaped towards.
Nice.
And so I was just going around with my camera phone and just taking pictures as I walked around of just different flowers and stuff. And I think of that as somewhat a bit. It was just therapy, really. That's what a lot of what I do with because I do my miniature painting right behind me in this little alcove, and it every day spending an hour or maybe two, like just sitting down and going, oh, I'm going to put some paint on this. And then that really is it's very therapeutic, but it's also my other, if I did it every day, if I did Full Metal RPG as a daily show and just like, I could see that being, I could get better.
Yeah, practice takes perfect, right? And that's something I try to do with my work too. Like even if it's a small amount, like work 30 minutes, 1 hour, just a small 1 or 2 paragraphs each day, it can adds up to big things, I think. You talked about being like a master procrastinator. What are like your favorite models, or favorite procrastinating activities?
Well, my favorite procrastinating activity right at the moment is watching YouTube videos about the thing I'm not doing. So like,
Okay.
so if I'm watching about YouTube videos about photography, YouTube videos about miniature painting, YouTube videos about working on cars, YouTube videos of, that's probably if just look by volume, that's kind of my like uh current my
Major
current
procrastination focus. Yeah.
major focus on my procrastination, or watching streaming with my wife. We just sit down on the couch and just sit there and watch stuff. Have you watched House of Usher yet? Have you seen the Fall of
Oh, I
House?
haven't. No.
It's I think one of the better Netflix things that have come out recently. Like it's legitimately creepy. Like, and it's the same Mike Flanagan that did all the houses, all this kind of like Halloween house theme that kind of keeps going through Netflix. Every year they release a new Halloween, and
Oh
this
yeah.
is very much based on Edgar Allan Poe. They have an episode called The Pit and the Pendulum and The Telltale Heart, but it's about the
Nice.
family Usher, who are a bunch of scumbag they sell drugs. They're like the Purdue family or whatever, the opiate sellers, and sort of like how this weird devil entity is sort of killing them off every episode. So
Wow.
um yeah, but yeah, that's probably my favorite. My current other procrastination is I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 again. So like I spent 90
Oh, that's
hours when it came
research.
out.
That's not procrastination. That's research.
That is research, yes. So
That's
I
what
can
I
so I can
call.
run another run another Cyberpunk game, so I can just keep playing.
Yeah, that's research. Come on. Oh,
Perfect.
uh, as you said, streaming, you meant like Netflix and stuff, or do you meant like people like playing RPGs in streaming? As you said, you watch with your wife.
Yeah, it's mostly watching Netflix and
Okay,
Amazon and but
cool,
I
cool.
I tried. I just didn't end up liking a lot of actual play stuff. I just
Yeah,
it's
I
something about
understand.
it.
I
I've
don't
made
too.
some.
I try, but I like to play, but watching people play, I mean, I try because I kind of, oh, I want to learn from this amazing gem. Everybody says it's amazing, but I try, but it's not for me. I mean, it's like watching sports. I don't watch sport. I like to play, but I don't watch it.
Yeah, that's kind of like it's sort of that same thing. I just feel like I sort of, in my own head, I'm like seeing kind of like, okay, and this is what I've always thought of is how this goes on these streaming shows is like, okay, guys, we got to get to this point. Let's all improv together to get to this point, right? It's not, and that's a way you can play
No.
RPGs, but it just doesn't
You don't think
the way
it's
it's
open-ended? There is
yeah,
no
I don't.
like open-ended actual plays out there?
I mean, I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people, but just like the bigger stuff I've seen,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
feels
yeah.
like I feel like I
Yeah.
can tell that they're like they've got a cliffhanger in mind, and then they're
Yeah.
trying to. It's just like writing a show, right? It's like when you're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
write,
because
you're
that's what
trying.
they want. They want to hook up the people on the story, so I think they restrict the gameplay to fit that story to create the emotional push to keep people watching as if it was a show, and some people really like that. But I mean, for me, I think that's I think a show would do this better.
Yeah, and I also think that it's sort of like I've used this analogy quite a bit. Is it's sort of like professional pornography versus homemade pornography. Like there
Yeah,
feels like there's a
homemade is
script.
so much better, of course.
Yeah, right.
It's
It
more
is.
authentic. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's why I like to play. It's just the like it just feels like, wow, this really feels like you hit your mark. You made something funny. You got some funny jokes, or you're professionally funny, and people like you. But it just feels like, oh, yeah, okay. We knew this twist was coming, so we're gonna act
Yeah.
surprised. Like it feels like we're acting as opposed to being surprised, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see the camera guy in the background is essentially the
Yeah.
problem. Like,
Well, in a lot of shows, those people are actually actors too. So that's kind of the point, I guess. But yeah, I understand. But talking about the streaming like Netflix and Prime, you talked about the fall of House of Usher. Do you have any other like weird show you've been watching that have been interesting, or movies? Like I've been watching Upload. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a show on Prime. It's an excellent show. It's from Greg Daniels, a guy that worked on The Office, which is basically my favorite show ever. But it's not really comedy. It's comedy, but it's like sci-fi, kind of cyberpunk, and kind of philosophical and political too. Uh, the story is basically in the future, people can upload their conscience to this virtual reality, which is kind of heaven, but only rich people can do it. And there's some people trying to make it like a free one, and there's murders and intrigue and comedy. It's a very interesting because it deals a lot with spirituality, with society inequalities, and but it's
yeah,
also weird because you are alive, but you are a artificial intelligence. Everything like we're dealing with now, like I have all these problems with artificial intelligence, and the show makes it something else and trying to start asking questions like, is if artificial intelligence would become really a person with wills, with wants, with desires, with history, would we consider that being a person like ourselves, or would just be this, I don't know, app we're interacting with?
right. I watched the first season of Upload. I really loved it, and I'm excited to see that there was a second season.
Three
I
seasons. Three.
Three seasons. Oh, is there three season?
Yeah,
Or
it
maybe
just
watched
came
the
out.
second
Third
season.
season came out now.
Okay, that's might be as we watched all there was, and then we're surprised there was another season. So like, it was a
Yeah.
year ago or whatever. Anyways, I tend to gravitate towards anything science fiction, like fantasy. I know fantasy is big in role playing games. Everybody loves fantasy, and we like occasionally we'll watch like The Witcher and Wheel of
Yeah.
Time. Wheel of Time is probably the weirdest thing I'm actually liking right now, but like, even though it's terrible, it's so bad it's good. Like I love that even though that series is problematic, it is like my first fantasy love. Like I have all 20 books in hardback on my
Okay.
shelf downstairs. Like it's almost like if the show is and it's sort of a, like if you took the books and gave everybody endless budget, but the quality, you just like pull the actual like quality of the acting from like a daytime soap opera, like which can be a lot of fun, but it's not like, you're not thinking of this as like this is not Game of Thrones. This is like a Game of Thrones budget, but somehow we want to just
Oh
do it
yeah.
on a much smaller scale. Like uh I'm really mad that The Peripheral, which was based on a William Gibson novel, is only going to ever get one season. Like they canceled The Peripheral,
Oh, okay.
which is a cool story about like multi-dimension like people like go branches of the timeline, and it's
Yeah.
one of Gibson's more
Well,
recent books. And I'm so sad they're not doing another
no.
season, because I actually think they were doing a pretty good job
Yeah.
at it, which is very
There's
unusual
so
for anything.
there's so much stuff, so much good stuff on TV. On it's something is gonna get canceled because I can't watch everything. I have a lot of stuff that I want to watch. I can't. It's impossible. So something's gonna get canceled because we can't be watching all of this. Like I've
Well,
ever
no, I
reading this
agree.
book
I
that's
agree.
like we're producing so much stuff. It's impossible for we to consume it, like books and series and stuff. So yeah.
Right. But like my point is like, for that one in particular, it's like, oh, it's a
Yeah.
science fiction show that is not like any other science fiction show we've had.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
why I was sad about it.
Yeah.
Like if somebody
Yeah,
said,
but
oh,
look on the
we're
other
not going to
side.
make
Like
another HB, go ahead.
we have 8 seasons of Love is Blind, so you have to look it through, what you're getting out of this,
But like, yeah, it's you're right. I do kind of, I was talking to somebody the other day, I sort of miss the old days of having 4 channels of television, and like sometimes there was just nothing on. It's just like like just nothing
Yeah,
was appealing, and you just like turned the TV off and you went somewhere else. Like there's never not a time like I could literally turn my TV on and have it going 24
yeah,
hours a day, 7 days a week for the next
yeah,
infinite amount of years,
yeah,
and
yeah,
not run out of stuff. So like
yeah,
I get what you're saying, but like as a science fiction person, like uh
yeah.
I watched The Creator, which is have you seen this? Have you seen
No,
it's a movie, and it's it's kind of an action thriller, but it's also about like AI versus humanity. So it's very
mm,
much on topic with what you're talking about, but it's like the I you know anytime a science fiction thing can be different than just like, it's, you can't see where they've traced over the last thing. I'm I'm
yeah,
into it, whether or not it's super good or not. Like
yeah.
I can see it wasn't the best movie ever, but it was a lot of fun. So
Have you been watching Foundation on Apple TV, like from the Zach Asimov? People are saying it's really good, and the ship design is, for what I've seen, it's really incredible.
I
If you
have
like science
not.
fiction, I know.
I
Yeah.
love science fiction, and it's one of between that and For All Mankind and
Yeah, for
Severance.
all
I
mankind.
think
Oh,
uh,
Severance, amazing.
I want to I want to get Apple Plus to get those shows, and then I can drop it again, I think. But like that's kind of the thing that I haven't watched that yet, because I don't have Apple Plus, because I try to give Apple as little of my money as possible. So like
But the month you do get it, watch Prehistoric Planet 2. It's like National Geographic, but for dinosaurs. It's amazing. Because
oh
it's not
dude, all
really,
right, all
oh,
right.
the Tyrannosaurus Rex is attacking a Triceratops. No, no, no. It's like, oh, it's mating seasons for Triceratops. So they show all this other stuff you are not used to watch dinosaurs do. And it's based on real research, and they have like extra episodes explaining how do they know Tyrannosaurus can swim. Tyrannosaurus could swim. and all this. It's very, very interesting. It's really well made. So yeah,
Are there
I got
feathers?
Apple
Are there
TV.
feathers on the dinosaurs?
Oh yeah. Velociraptors are like
Oh,
big,
excellent.
big evil chickens.
I love it. I'm in. Okay, you've convinced me. I'll yeah, and that
It's really
I
good. Yeah.
yeah, that
You can
that
try
month
the
that you keep
trial and
going.
watch everything in 1 month. I mean,
Excellent. I'm in.
yeah.
You sold it
and
for the free
and
month.
Severance, yeah, Severance is incredible. My only grip with it's next season is only in 2025, but it's another really fantastic, weird show, and that's reminiscence of The Office for me. It's kind of the dark office because you have the life in the office and all this. For people that don't know, Severance is a show that talks about the story of people that go to work in this secret company. That when you get to work, they have a chip in your brain and you forget everything from your personal life outside of work. So you have and you get out of work, you forget everything that happens inside work. So you basically divide yourself in two persons, one that only exists at work and one that exists outside of work. So there's all these
Yeah,
conflicts, and sometimes your work person doesn't want to work anymore, but you still want them to work in that company. So it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting.
I watched a couple episodes on a flight because they had a preview on a flight, like the in-house Wi-Fi or whatever.
Yeah,
And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like it was definitely made my list. And I
yeah,
the scene where that woman is like running down that hallway and then she keeps running down that hallway and then it keeps coming.
yeah.
That scene is like, it's sort of like you could just use that scene and just show that to everybody that ever works. Okay, kids, are
Wow.
you going to go to office? Like this is
Yeah.
exactly what it's like. You want to run out the door, and then for some reason you keep coming back. Oh, it's called money.
Yeah.
Anyways,
You know what? I have to take notes of. I want to make an RPG about like being in severance, like working and you can't leave. You're basically the game. You're trying to get fired or out of work or trying to get out of this. That can be a
but you
game. That's
trying to play that. It would be interesting to try and play that two-sided thing because like
yeah.
you how do I feel like it's a two-sided
Like
character
you
sheet.
could have a character and another player could be your Audi, your outside. Like you get the innie, it's the one inside the work, and the Audi is the one outside. So you could have different people playing different parts of yourself. I don't know. Something to explore.
That would
But
be rad. That would
yeah,
be rad, and
yeah.
that's the sort of like that's the sort of amazing stuff we love from you, Diogo. So like I'm first backer, first buyer, whatever you
That would be
want.
cool,
Whenever,
yeah.
yeah, that would
It's
be
a
a lot of
great
fun.
show. I mean, it's worth exploring. Richie, since we talked about RPGs, one question I always ask guests that come here is whether you think if RPGs are a weird thing, and if you do, what would be your favorite weird parts of role-playing games?
So part of what I think at one point RPGs were weird. Now I think I'm trying to normalize RPGs, which is why, I'm talking about RPG therapy and all this other stuff. So like I don't think it's weird at this point because I can tell anybody I play RPGs. Like, and maybe that's just my privilege and where I live and all this stuff is because I can say, hey, yeah, I play role-playing games. And they're like Dungeons and Dragons. Well, not really, but close enough. Like
Oh, don't they
maybe it's
assume
weird that
it's
I'm
like
not.
computer? Don't they
No,
assume it's computer role-playing games?
no.
Oh,
Yeah, when I'm at work, I mean, there's some people that assume it's computer, but when I'm like at work and I'm talking to somebody and they're like, oh, what do you play? What are your hobbies? What do you do? And I was like, well, I play role playing games. And they're like, oh, like Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, yeah, it's sort of like that, but I've got a different, you know, and there are some
sort of like
people who are
that,
like,
but it's good, you know.
it's sort of like that,
Joke,
but good. Yeah. No,
but it's
not
good.
quite say that way. It's like, I play a
Yeah,
lot of
I know,
games. Some of
man.
them are like Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow,
And
nice.
so I feel like at least in the States, or at least or at least I'm willing to be out and about it, out and proud about it, I guess. And
Yeah.
it used to be like, yeah, like I would not mention, it was like, back in the 90s when I first started playing, like you did not mention you played role-playing games at school. Like you just did not, You like felt people out and figured out, oh, okay, that person is cool. We can like get a game with them, or like at least we can be nerdy around them, or this person is hostile towards nerds. But in some ways, I feel like the nerds have won. So at
Yeah.
least around here,
Wow.
and so
Yeah.
and I'm trying to normalize it. So but the weirdest thing about RPGs is like emotional bleed. Do you know about emotional bleed?
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
it's
when the emotion generates from the game bleeds into reality and you actually feel the feelings your character would be feeling, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly it. And the game that gave me that was 10 Candles. That game is so dark, and like I ended up like after we played it, I had to come home and like hug my wife, like to
Wow.
like get to like just because I was so devastated by the kind of like the storyline that and the ambiance. And but there's also the other side of emotional bleed, which is your daily life bleeding into your character. That's a little
Uh,
like a lot of people, people say, oh, we're playing RPGs to escape our normal life, but also like I think that like people are bringing their own reality into the game, and that can be a problem too. That can be a real actual problem with the table. But
oh yeah, for sure.
that's the thing is like you can never separate yourself from your character. Like the further you can separate yourself, the more closer, there's like I don't think you can ever like, I'm going to use a nerd term, asymptotically, you can never like get fully separated from your character. Like I feel like
Okay. Yeah.
that's a goal, but like, it's also like it's hard to separate role playing games from after emotions too. So like there's but that's
Yeah.
that to me, those are the kind of the weirdest things about role playing games anymore. Like that emotions and feelings and
Yeah.
stuff.
Hello, weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and I'm back with a word from our sponsors. Me. I just released a new game called Cosmosaurus, in which you play a dinosaur space ranger who protects the galaxy from evil threats such as slime bankers, undead pirates, and Cosmosaurus from a void dimension. It's a game with a runes-light system inspired by Forged in the Dark and Lasers and Feelings. It comes with a bunch of tables for you to generate content for it. If you know my games, they're really easy to play and they have tools to help you improvise and play with low prep. It's an ideal game for one-shots, short campaigns, and introducing new people to the hobby, and it's a really perfect family game. I play with my kids all the time. It's a game inspired by Saturday morning cartoons. It's really well illustrated by Lucas Kowalski from Poland, and with a great layout by Guilherme Gontijo. It's a really fun game. You should check it out on DriveThruRPG, itch.io, or exclusively in print on exaltedfuneral.com. I have many other games there, check them out. All the links are in the show notes, so click there. And let's get back to Weird with our chat. I think it's kind of art too. Like every time you do art, like I love this book called Still Like an Artist that talks about you taking ideas from others and mixing it up and trying to copy other artists that you admire. And one of the things they say is that the great thing about being a human is that you're incapable of making a perfect copy. You're always going to infuse it with a little bit about yourself. And it's kind of how characters are. Like no matter how different you try to make them, you try every time you play, you make a different character, but you can't help but infusing it with something about yourself, something about your essence, maybe your values or something you find interesting. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying is like, yeah, just like you are always going to be a part of your character. And
Yeah.
I think the better the game, and I don't even mean like the better written the system is, just like the more you're into the game, the probably easier it is to like really play a character that may not be just you, right?
Yeah.
That there's this like, okay, well now I can think more like this character, and I'm, And
I can get in this space, you know.
right, I can get into this headspace. I can get into like, you're like, wow, I would never have done that. I never would have thought of doing that, but somehow it came out, right? And that's sort of the weird thing about RPGs.
Do you have any example of a situation that happened with you or someone you were playing with that made you or them just think, wow, I never thought I would be doing that in a game?
Yeah, I think that like just I I was playing I was playing the kind of like barbarian character, which is one of my stock characters. It's sort of like I always pick it to try and like be the opposite of myself. Is
Okay.
like, because I started playing a lot of wizards because that just was very attractive to me, but I try to play the barbarian character and like to be the opposite of myself. And then there have been instances where I definitely would have tried to listen to somebody instead of just like no, it behooves my character and myself to listen. No, this is the barbarian and the barbarian is going forward. That's the sort of like I'm not,
Yeah.
it's not a great example, but it is an example
It's
of
just an
like
example, yeah, of course. You as you mentioned about how RPGs are not that weird today, we can talk about it more freely with people that are not really so familiar with it. But did you mention that it's not like in the 90s that you have to hide something? Uh, do you remember having to hide from someone you hang out with that you played RPGs? And if you
um
did, why?
yeah, I think it was more like hiding from like, because I was super nerd in high school, like uh, just like I didn't really know
Yeah.
anybody, and like I would, before I played RPGs, like I would just sit on the bus to and from school and read X-Wing and Star Wars novels. That's my origin story for how I started playing RPGs. Is somebody said, "Hey, do you want to come over and play Star Wars at my house?" And of course, I'm in high school, but so I would go over to their house and I play Weston Star Wars. That was the first role playing game I played. Um, but it was basically like, kind of aunts and uncles and stuff like that. Like I didn't really know anybody outside of my nerd bubble. Like I was very isolated inside my nerd bubble. So like I mean, I didn't date in high school. I didn't have any kind of like outside of my bubble. I just didn't know anybody. So like hiding was kind of, you know, uh it I just had a kind of a insulated myself from the situation because of all the kind of bullying and stuff I had in
Yeah.
elementary school and middle school. Like I I was lifted over somebody's head and thrown on the ground, like for
Wow.
just standing there, like just like, oh, I'm here, and then all of a sudden, huh, huh, and he's like, the guy bullied me incessantly and just I think he
Oh
kind of
yeah.
backed off after that, but like, because but I didn't I didn't come out when I first, after into college, I started, I finally started dating. Like I didn't talk to the women I was dating at the time about it. Like it, I did now, like,
Yeah.
my wife knew
That
immediately.
was I was going
Like
to ask. Yeah, because I
yeah, my
have something like this. Like I would date women, and I would be like resistant to mention I would play RPGs because I've I stopped dating people because of that. People would pull away from me because of RPGs. And I was wondering if that ever happened to someone, even like friends, or because I had friends that had to stop playing RPGs because their wives prohibited them from playing RPGs. You know?
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like that was a kind of a toxic relationship anyway, in some ways. But like nobody has ever asked me to, other than my father said, "Hey, you need to be home at curfew. You can't stay out playing role-playing games all night. Like that was probably my worst experience in the 90s from people knowing I played. But I had so little money that like I had like 2 books during high school, and that was saving up my lunch
Yeah.
money. And and those books stayed at home. I never took them to school. Like um I was in the Boy Scouts, so like I tried to. There was like at Boy Scout camp, we actually like I found that actually might be my first RPG, but I can't remember whether that was before or after Star Wars. Like I definitely played D&D in a Boy Scout camp, but it was like we all knew each other like beforehand, so like um
That helps.
yeah, I don't think I've been very lucky. I've been very privileged to not be really harassed about it. Just kind of like I kind of I guess I did some self censoring, and then
You will throw on the
now,
ground, dude.
yeah,
That's heavy stuff. I
yeah,
mean, I
it was,
was bullied, but it never got to this point, you know.
yeah. I don't quite understand what the guy's point was. I just think he was, because I was a scrawny kid, and I've worn glasses since I was in 5th grade, 4th grade, or whatever. So like, I just think I was just the scrawny target. Like he was just looking for somebody that he could beat up and show that
Yeah,
he was
he's
cool.
unhappy with himself and see somebody comfortable being themselves, and they can't take that shit, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And I even had like kind of I had one, not that guy, but another guy actually messaged me on Facebook and apologized for how much he bullied me like 30 years
Oh,
later. So
well, yeah.
that's I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that glad I can help, help
Yeah,
talk to him about
good for
it.
him
But
for re-examining the stuff that he did, you know. I
right.
think
And
I
so that,
mean we all make mistakes, you know, so I think it's always great for someone to be able to recognize the shit they made and trying at least to say, oh yeah, I've been shitty and I'm sorry. I know they can't fix anything, but yeah.
yeah,
How
and
did you
that's,
feel?
I felt like uh you know I really appreciate him reaching out. Like I felt like that it is something that I'm hoping that, not reaching out to me, but I hope that the guy that threw me on the ground like has like realized that maybe he was a shithead in school, and has come back around
Yeah.
to be a productive member of society. But I understand that his life was probably worse than mine. It
Yeah.
just in general,
It
bullies'
happens,
lives are
yeah.
probably worse at home than their lives,
Yeah.
and they're
They're
just
learning this from someone. Yeah.
right, exactly. So, and maybe they're not, but there's something about them that's driving them to do this stuff. And that's not getting them off the hook. They're still being assholes. But like
Yeah.
I want to I I I want to help people, and that's the reason I think RPG therapy can kind of help people. And I know,
Yeah.
hilariously, like the therapeutic area kind of was doing some role playing without a system beforehand. Like put yourself in her shoes, and you put yourself in your shoe. Like
Yeah.
swapping roles and pretending, and that sort of thing was already been a thing for a very long time. But like uh I think that there is something that helps about the systemization and the like we were talking about, people like being able to, still being themselves, but they're playing a character, so they have some separation to kind of look back at their behavior, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Kind of shields, you know, for them to explore. It's
yeah,
safer to
exactly.
explore and to play, yeah. Richie, what would be the weirdest RPG you ever played, or weirdest game you ever played, and or you played recently that left something kind of impression on you?
Probably the weirdest game I've ever played. Oh God. Now I now I almost want to get the game off my shelf because I bought it from the guy. But the weirdest game I ever played was this time manipulation game where you basically put events on a board and kind of like drew these concentric circles like a rock in a pond.
Pulse.
And
Pulse? Is it Pulse?
Oh, hold on a second.
Yeah, sure. There's a game as you were describing. Yes, it's Pulse. It's from a game designer from Brazil called Enco Chagas.
Yeah.
As
I
we're
have
saying,
a copy. I have a copy of it.
It's a Brazilian game.
Yeah, he came to Gen Con one year, and
Yeah.
I bought it from. I played it with him and I bought it because it was. I looked at it. I love the idea of the time manipulation and the like events crossing and having more events happen from the like that's probably the I don't know if that's the weirdest game, but I just kind of love that being it's kind of weird because of the way it works. So
yeah.
but that was
It's
years and
something
years
else,
ago. Gosh. 2013. Yeah. 10 years old. But yeah, I mean the weirdest game I played recently was a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but that's because of the people that were playing and being weird and not weird in a good way, weird in a bad way. So I wouldn't even say weird. They were just being dickheads. So because I don't want to think of weird as being bad, but they were just,
Yeah. You're being jackets. Yeah, the theme is weird is the new wonderful. So weird it's kind of unique, authentic, and different. So we're kind of fascinated by that. And yeah, that's something I like to ask too, guests that come here for you to what is weird for you and why are you interested in it and how do you seek that in your work and in your life?
I mean, I think what's weird to me is thinking about stuff more than just the surface level. That's kind of why I do Full Metal RPG the way I do. That I'm very introspective, and I think that's really difficult for a lot of people to think about what they're doing. So like that's what I'm attracted to. I mean, obviously I'm attracted to all sorts of thinking about weird events and real world events that are like that learning minutia of historical stuff. Like I started listening to a podcast and they did like a 6-part series on G. Gordon Liddy and how much of a dickhead he was and like how much of an if he was not incompetent things would have been very different in America. Weird historical facts like that change your perception of what happened before you existed. It's kind of like that. I'm very attracted to that. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts about it, but
Nice. Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, I was kind of making parallels with stuff. So let me see if I'm trying to make some analysis of this. You're saying everything, if you look close enough and deep enough, can be very weird. You can learn all of these details that you can, see reality for much more than we take it for granted. Like we see all these things and on the surface, but if you take a look in just a notebook in the cover, if you could really get close and deep enough, you would see all this environment. There's creatures living here, all this stuff happening, and as you're saying, making like a parallel. We could imagine our oceans. If we go deep enough, that place is completely alien, So,
well, I mean, I don't think you have to go that deep in the ocean for it to be weird. If you just take a cup of ocean water and like start zooming in, you will get to the point where you're going to see little creatures and little like the microplastics and like all of the just there's like a biome within a drop of spit. Like the fact that we are not human being is not I'm not a human being. I'm a collection of bacteria. Like just by volume,
we're an environment.
Right. I'm in an
we're
environment
like a
for a whole
civilization of this cosmos. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So looking
like
closer
a small
and closer
universe.
and closer.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I like this. The weird in the depth and the weird in the minutiae, in the detail. Very nice. Richie, now I usually get to a little more personal and start asking personal questions about experiences and beliefs and stuff that you're interested
Sure.
to. And I begin asking about weird experiences you might have lately, and maybe any near-death experiences or anything that's made you examine your life and your vision about things and the realizations, like after something that happened during the pandemic that made you re-examine your life or anything?
So the weirdest, the most, I would call it slightly out of the box experience I've ever had was at a concert years ago. And it was a Tool concert, which is my favorite band. And I was on the show, I was on the general admission floor, and I guess I was so into the music that I felt like I had an out of body experience, as if I floated to the top of the arena and was looking down at the show.
Nice.
But in general, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm very I think about stuff. I don't, if I don't know something, can't necessarily believe it. But that out of body experience, that feeling, and it could be, I mean, I don't take any drugs or anything, but I don't take any, like, just that experience of like feeling the weight of myself float up and just kind of like be at the ceiling level and just like hanging out there for just a few moments and then snapping back.
Wow.
So yeah, that's probably the weirdest
Very
thing
nice.
that's ever
Yeah.
happened to me.
There's a lot of theories about music and brain waves that can get you into even psychedelic and have hallucinogenic states. So that's very possible. And there's a lot of musicians that shoot for this kind of experience. So
And
that could
I
be
feel like
something that happened to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of it's somewhat a stated goal of Tool, and it's sort of one of the reasons I listen to that sort of like complex rhythms. I enjoy a complex rhythm, probably because I can kind of like, as I'm like sitting there listening and like mentally clapping along or counting the
Yeah.
rhythms or whatever, that like it takes me out of myself a little bit. Like it lets me like, I mean, you could say a meditative state, but I'm not necessarily, I mean, anything can be meditation. Like there's many ways of meditating, but that sort of like thinking about it, like while I'm designing, I do mechanical design as a day job. And like, while I'm doing stuff that is very visual, I will have like people talking, entertaining the other side of my brain. But when I'm doing something uh when I'm doing something that's very like word driven, like I'm trying to write something, I'm listening to something that's very rhythmic and driving and having it, there's no words are being said, or like the words are just so they're floated into the music in a way that they kind of become more harmonies kind of thing. So like I feel like I do a lot of like, depending on the task I'm trying to concentrate after I procrastinated, being a master procrastinator,
Yeah.
I tend to try and listen to the exact opposite of the auditory stimulus as I'm trying to create something, one way or the other.
Yeah, I think I'm like that too. Like when I'm drawing, I can listen to artists and musicians that I like, that they sing, and sometimes I listen to stand-up comedy that I like a lot. But when I'm writing, I also listen to rhythmic music or lo-fi music or something instrumental with some rhythm, and gets me going in the rhythm and in the flow, as they say, you know. You mentioned you don't do any kind of drug. Don't know now. Have you ever experimented with this, with mind altering, perception altering, or
no?
Or no,
I've never done anything. Basically, because the drug culture in the United States means that like I basically started working in a corporation like right after high school. Like it was like like if I had done anything, I would have been fired immediately, because because when you get hired in America, at least it used to be, I think it's a little different now, but if you didn't pass your drug test, then they make you take a drug test to get a job. So like and now that I work in an even tighter situation, if any kind of accident happens at work, I get tested. So like I've always used music as kind of a drug. That's the reason I like a lot of the complex stuff, is or listening to other people's experiences when they're using different hallucinogens and things. As my friends Nolan and Paul have said, like, yeah, once we retire, we're going to do all the cool drugs. Like that's once we stop, being harassed by the man, and we can just like sit in our chairs, we'll just do that kind of thing. So
I mean, I think that's great. I don't think that changed. We live in a drug-based society. People drink coffee every day. Coffee is a psychedelic drug, and we take any, like, we have a headache, we pop a pill. We have any minor thing, people are popping pills everywhere. But some drugs as this, like, that makes you in a reflective state, that gets you ideas and makes you not work and make you think. They're not robotic. Productive for society. Okay. Wait a minute. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. What I would say is that that's great for you, like being safe, and work is kind of bad stuff, but that doesn't change the fact that we live in a drug-based society. Like, people drink coffee every day. Coffee is a psychedelic drug, and we are popping pills for basically anything. Like, we have a small headache, we're popping pills. Our stomach feels different, we're popping pills, but there's some kind of drugs like marijuana or mushrooms that are not really productive drugs. You would take them and will not be able to immediately work. We'll have to think and reflect and question things. Like, we would question standards of society and practice. So that's always have this bad reputation, and people will try to fight it because it's something that makes people see the world differently, I think.
I think
that's
so.
changing somewhere, right?
Yeah, it is changing at some places. And I think that, like, I mean, food is a drug because it changes your body chemistry and you need it to survive. Like, you're addicted to food, right? But there's no way out of that, right?
And companies are making food addictive. They're hiring engineers and medics and putting all this crap on the food to make us addicted. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And like, the company that every company I've ever worked at gives you free coffee or tea, right? I drink tea because I just started needing something other than water, and now I'm addicted to tea. Like, I just water, when you drink so much water, because I live in a desert, eventually it starts to not taste great. Like, when you're like, I have to drink more water, so I started drinking tea because I didn't want to drink any more sugar beverages.
Yeah.
And that's it is you're right, it's a productivity thing. That the corporations, the government wants you to be productive, so they're going to allow you to. There's a reason that you're allowed to have smoke breaks, because nicotine, by all rights, should have been banned. It should have been banned by the methodology of the delivery systems, basically killing you. But it is a productive drug because it basically is. It's another, caffeine, nicotine. It all gives you this kind of like high that keeps you, that raises your to the point where you're going to be more productive. So,
and as you talk about, to have no spirituality, probably, do you have any kind of religion? Were you raised religious, or have you always been
I've always been
Agnostic? Are you
skeptical.
okay?
I've always been skeptical. I've
Did you got this
never.
from your parents, or did you learn this through life? Or
I I I didn't really. I mean, my grandmother was Methodist, and we went to some Methodist services. She didn't force us to go because my dad didn't. My dad wasn't a big. Uh, he didn't take us to church or anything, and we did Boy Scouts, and there's kind of a non-denominational thing in Boy Scouts.
yeah,
Um, but I never really. I don't think I ever really bought in. Like, it was never really my thing. And then I kind of, once I started to learn more things about the world, like I couldn't, it never did anything for me once. And even when I didn't know anything. So like, it was just easy for me to be a kind of an atheist. I think humans are amazing pattern recognition machines. And if there's a pattern that people like or make them feel good, that thoughts of God and stuff like that, like it's then it's real to you, so it's going to make you feel better. And I'm glad that you have that, right? And I'm glad that I have things that make me feel better too.
oh yeah, that's next thing I would try to ask you. Then, what would be those things that makes you feel better? Do you have any kind of philosophy or any kind of something to guide you through life, or did you learn anything
uh
from, as I said, Boy Scouts, like non-denominations kind of teachings, virtues, or anything like this?
I do try and kind of keep to you know I do like to keep a try to help people. That's kind of my main goal. That makes me feel good, is trying to help people. Like, and it makes me, and the things that make me feel better are generally like listening to rhythmic music or driving fast, going around corners fast. But that, getting kind of body chemicals going in a way. Uh, uh, and I think that if, the one thing I did take is like help other people at all times, is kind of like, if I'm going to take one saying from the Boy Scouts, that's the saying I'm going to take. And it kind of like, if I at work, I am the one that's like, because I know stuff and I like to help people, so I'm helping people all the time. And if I see somebody struggling and be like, can I help you, that makes me feel better. Like, if I could, help people realize that they need, they want something or need something, then I feel it's pretty good to do that.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great thing to do, and it's even improving scientifically, like helping others make you feel good. It's scientifically proven. So if you're feeling bad out there, go see if you can be useful to someone, and I think that makes you feel good, to make you feel you're part of something and you're connecting to these people. That's a great feeling for sure. Richie, talking about now other things you might believe or not, like, do you have any experience with the supernatural? Do you believe in ghosts? Have you ever seen a ghost, or do you believe in aliens? Have you seen anything, any kind of weird creature, elves or fairies? Do you have any experience with the supernatural, like sorcery, witches, like tarot readings? Do you believe in any of this? And if you do, did you had any experience with any of them?
So in general, I'm not a believer. Now, when the lights are out and I'm walking around an abandoned place and I hear something move, like, yeah, for a moment, I probably believe in ghosts or whatever. Wherever I'm at, whatever the situation is. In general, I definitely believe that aliens exist. 100% believe aliens exist. But I am in the camp of, they probably haven't visited Earth. I believe a lot of what, and I believe a lot of what people think are aliens can be explained in other ways, and also was probably a lot of Cold War aircraft, a lot of especially in the States, there's a lot of like experimental aircraft and foreign intrusion aircraft and stuff like that. But I definitely think that this universe is so big, this universe is so gigantic, that there is no possible way that there is not life somewhere else in the cosmos. And if there, and even intelligent life is probably going to be more rare just by the odds, just looking at it. I'm sort of like, think about it scientifically, and it's like, yeah, there's probably intelligent life somewhere else in the galaxy, probably a lot of it. Is it necessarily get through the kind of crucible of becoming an atomic civilization? That's probably even less likely. But there's definitely, I definitely believe that there are aliens out there. I can't prove it, but I'm always fascinated by, that's probably the most. And I listen to a lot of Coast to Coast to AM in back when it was kind of like the only podcast, because I could get it down, I could download it on my little MP3 player and listen to hours and hours of people tell interesting stories about their encounters with ghosts and aliens and stuff like that. So I really enjoy those stories, even if I don't necessarily believe in them.
Right. Yeah, me too. Like, I always like to see those documentaries and then like recordings. And I kind of don't believe too, but I want to believe, like X-Files, I want to believe.
Yeah, we have
Something
we have a channel on on the Full Metal RPG Discord called Molderville, where people can post stuff where it's weird happenings and stuff, because that's also research. I mean, going back to playing Cyberpunk 2077, like anytime you can listen to weird, creepy stories, somebody
it's inspirational.
It's just inspirational, more RPG fodder. Yeah, you're right. I want to believe, but it's hard for me to. I do listen to probably too many skeptics, and I like to also debunk a little bit. Like if I can't debunk it, like, well, maybe it's possible.
For sure. Richie, do you have any artist or creator that inspires yourself, that kind of use as a model for how you approach your work and the stuff that you do?
I really it's something I want to do. It's my inspiration, but I'm working on a show kind of like it, but essentially there's a guy named Dan Carlin who does a podcast called Hardcore History, and he like basically puts out an audio book about a historical event. It's like Blueprint to Armageddon is probably the series I recommend the most, which is about World War I, and how basically we're living in a post-apocalyptic Armageddon world because of just how many people died in World War I, and just the percentage of the population, and the different historical perspectives, and just the talking, and his voice is so good and his delivery is amazing, and it just it's a very inspirational for me. Like there's an event where Steve Jackson Games was raided by the Secret Service in the early 90s.
Cyberpunk, right?
Yeah, GURPS Cyberpunk, but it really wasn't about GURPS Cyberpunk. It was about the guys writing GURPS Cyberpunk. Like he was the guy writing GURPS Cyberpunk was actually a hacker who had retired theoretically. So like that event is one of the most fascinating things to me about it. It struck up a couple of historical things that kicked off, that partially creating the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, who has been fighting for our electronic freedoms ever since. So like it's a, I have a whole like document where I've written out the story and reading a bunch of books about it. That's my like, it just, if I was going to, do more one mic stuff, and that's the direction I want to go. That's the most whenever that podcast drop, it's like, and download, and now I'm listening to 4 hours of this guy talking about one part of this, where I'm going to wait another 6 months for another 4 hours of this guy talking, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
imagine like in 10 years you're doing this like for the great OGL crisis, intervene people and stuff like this.
That's on my list, by the way. That's on my list of like, once the fires blow off and the blow over, and the people start moving on, like, you could start interviewing them. I would love to pretend to be a journalist. That's like my inspiration.
RPG journalist.
That's
fun.
Because I feel like we don't quite have that person, at least that I have found that I really like. And maybe we don't have that. We have historians, but they mostly concentrate on TSR. Like, you can, and I've read like 4 or 5 books about the history of TSR, and a book series about the history of RPGs, but none of them dig deeper than relatively surface stuff on a few companies. So like, there are historic events that are going forward that it's like the history of the other American, there's really only 2 truly American art forms, and that's jazz and RPGs, because everything else was kind of derived from, African music or somewhere else. Like jazz, while it still has its roots in a lot of
that's a great phrase, by the way. Jazz and RPGs are the true American art forms. Holy fuck, I never heard this. That's great.
Because I added the RPGs. I've definitely listened to a lot of music critics talk about jazz being the only American art. If you look back, like, jazz was created here. It wasn't, I mean, I'm sure it was, it's definitely influenced by spirituals and all sorts of other things, but it doesn't have a predecessor that's direct. Like, it's not really bluegrass changed into something else. Like, it's very much like and the same thing with RPGs. It has its predecessors. Like, you go back to H.G. Wells and the first war game. Like, RPGs were predicated by the cowboys and Indians in the backyard, the playing imagination,
a lot of
also
stuff.
A lot of stuff. But it was a very much it's completely different.
Like, this is something unique.
It's just not another war game. It's something completely different. And
that's gonna stick for me. Like, jazz and RPGs being true American art forms.
We founded it, but I'm hoping that as things
of
expand,
course, it's not yours anymore. It's ours.
Right.
But I mean,
I love hearing. I want more stuff from other places, and I really wish I was better at languages. That's
me too. I mean, have you seen there's this Japanese themed, like, mythological Morkborg game in Japanese that looks amazing.
Oh no, dude!
But it's all in Japanese.
What's the name of it? Do you know?
I don't know. It's in Japanese, man.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, I mean, okay.
But I mean,
okay. Well,
people in the community are really excited by it, and they're asking if you're going to translate to English, because it looks bonkers, like, so good. And
I'm in. Like, I need to go figure out who this is and see if I can. I mean, even a bad Google Translate would probably get across some interesting stuff. So, like, but
maybe
if it's Morkborg, it's Morkborg.
It's Morkborg. I don't know if you're gonna able to, like, copy and paste and understand this shit. I mean, it's Morkborg and it's in Japanase. So, I mean, it looks amazing, but I don't know. Like, you can get an idea what it is because of the images, which are really well made, but I can't understand shit. But it looks
I've always
fantastic.
wanted to do like a show, or just play this way, where you get the character sheet and just play the game, without ever knowing about what the game is and
Oh
what
yeah,
it actually was, and then go and like read the game and go, oh,
yeah,
well, we were close, or oh, we were really far off. It's sort of the same thing with this. I'm
yeah,
sure that I would love to just get the character sheet, and because I know the systems, so like trying the flavor is in the like
yeah,
different playbooks or whatever you want to call them.
yeah. Oh, in
So
the equipment list on the setting details. I mean, if they did like Morkborg did, Morkborg, some people say, oh, it's like a simple system and it's all dark, but there's so much flavor hidden in very small details in random tables, in equipment lists. It's a really well built setting that you it's hard to see, but it's there. But I'm hoping the Japanese one it's similar to this. So
yeah, because
that's why I'm
that's the
hoping for a
thing.
translation. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. It's the same thing with Hollywood. A lot of people took the wrong lesson from Morkborg. Is
Yeah.
like, and Morkborg is it's not. I mean, the layout and the imagery is amazing, and it totally takes it to a total another level. But
Yeah.
the little details
Yeah.
in the tables bring it to life, and there's a lot of people that are making these games that
Yeah.
don't understand that, and it's very disappointing. Like I did, like I was talking about that Viking one. At least it's a different take. It's not just like we slapped our skin on top. Like it's a different take. Like
No.
Thor's hammer got dropped to Earth, and we got to go find it. Like, okay, that's a different take on the system. Whether or not it's successful is totally up to you. But like, that's the interesting details to pick out from a lot of these games. Just like looking at one segment of games, kind of thing. So
Yeah. I mean, works greatly even without the art. Like the art-free version, it's so good. It's very well built game.
I'm
Richie,
glad they put that out.
yeah.
I'm glad they
Yeah.
put that out because there was a lot of people like, I can't even read this, so because of the different site problems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that should be almost a standard at this point, is putting out a naked edition. So anyways, go ahead.
For sure, accessibility for sure. It really helps. Not only if your game is Morkborg, like any game, especially if you like putting backgrounds and images. If you could have like even an EPUB or plain text version, it can really help out people with eye disabilities or some kind of reading disabilities.
Yeah, at least let the text be selectable in the PDF, so you can use a reader with it. So yeah.
Richie, if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and what would be the first thing you would do with it?
Well, I have two answers to this. I have the fun answer and the real answer. The fun answer is invisibility, just because I've always felt like it would be very bad for my psyche, but I always felt like I was invisible, but I wasn't. So like, I would like to just be invisible and just and just hang out and listen to conversations in interesting places. I don't want to go look at anybody naked. Like, I got the internet, I can do that. Like, I don't want to intrude on it. I just want to go to interesting places and listen to interesting conversations without the pure, authentic, real conversations. That's the fun answer. The other answer is I would like to have Batman's wealth, so I could do something, so I could actually help people with it. Like, that's being wealthy would be is a superpower onto itself. At least that's what the comic books tell me. So I'm gonna go with be rich so I can help people, like really help them, not set up charities and figure out how to solve problems, and that would be my
and make this money do something that helps people and not just create more wealth. Like, because the logic of our society now is it's like we produce not to fulfill needs, but to generate wealth. So, and we don't need people that generate wealth don't need more wealth. We need to fulfill the needs of all these people that it's crazy,
like I mean, to me, it would be like Brewster's Millions. I just keep have you seen the movie Brewster's Millions?
No.
It's it's actually a great concept for a game now that I think about it. But essentially this guy's, it's Richard Pryor in the 1980s, but his rich white unknown uncle passes away and gives him he says, okay, I'm giving you this much money. You have to get rid of all of it. Without telling anybody that's what you're doing. You have to get rid of all of it. And you have to spend all this money without having anything at the end.
Okay.
And it's a different kind of, it's a weird, it is a weird idea, but it's also like trying to say, oh, well, you just can't blow it all on art or whatever. You can't just buy something and destroy it. You have to like figure out a way to spend all this money. And that idea of like, okay, well, wealth begets wealth. So like if you have a lot of money, as long you just have to like just use it to help people, but also you're going to keep getting money. Like it just gets attracted to you because everybody wants a piece of you. And when you're that kind of wealthy or whatever, that I would like to see a more realistic take on Batman. PS. So like,
yeah, like a good Batman that actually help people and just beat the shit out of people that fell to the system and became, you know.
Yeah, exactly. There was an SNL skit that was pretty much that was great. Anyways,
Richie, what would thing or fantastic or fictional science fiction thing that you wish were real in our world, and what would it be and why would you choose that?
Easy space travel. That would be the fictional science fiction thing that I would, and it should exist eventually on a long enough timeline if we keep our heads out of our butts. But
we need this or we're doomed.
Right. Yes. On a long enough timeline, we are doomed if we are sitting on one planet because we have stunted. We can't evolve anymore because we've basically, we're creating problems faster than we can evolve through them.
Yeah.
Hell, we can't even evolve through sleeping proper amounts of day from pre-industrial society to now, right? Anyways. So I think the space flight and galactic or getting off our planet and terraforming other planets, and that's sort of like, really, I want the Expanse without the terrible class problems they had in the Expanse. But let's be honest, it's capitalism dead, long live capitalism. Next capitalism will be the same situation, just slightly different.
No, but the red wave is coming. You just wait.
I'm very interested to watch that and see if it turns out well. I'm hoping for everybody's sake that it turns out well.
You know, I mean, I'm hoping for Star Trek. You know, we came together. We have uniforms, so we don't have to spend a lot of time choosing what we're dressing. And
post scarcity society would be great. That would be. I mean, if you really want to say, the real thing in Star Trek is the post scarcity. Like, it's not even traveling amongst the stars; it's post scarcity.
Yeah.
Which would be great. I'd love that. Then we can pursue the arts we want, or pursue exploration, or the both. And I think if I was just, I would like us to be a multi-planet civilization as a species. That would be my hope.
Yeah, that would be great, and I hope that happens someday. I don't think it's sustainable for us to, keep competing against one another. Richie.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Finally, like, last question to you, set you free. Do you remember the last time you felt really happy and grateful for being here, alive and all? And if you do, can you share a little bit with us? What was it?
Yeah. And it has something a little bit to do with my real day job, and the fact that my boss was trying to describe what I do there at work, and he described me as a mad scientist. And it's something as a kid, that was my dream, is to be a mad scientist. So I was really chuffed, as the English say. I was over the moon that my boss thinks that the crazy shit I do at work to get things to work ends up, because he couldn't quite describe what I do as at anything other than mad science. And I'm not raising the dead. Like, let's be clear. Like, I'm not, I'm not making Frankenstein, but like I am doing, I do a lot of creative exercises in engineering, and that's sometimes hard for management to describe what I do. So.
No, well, that's great. So do you feel fulfilled in your day job and stuff?
I really enjoy the projects. I am not there. There's a part of me that doesn't. There's some end results I'm not particularly happy with, but and I would like to switch over to working on green technology or some other engineering perspective other than what I do at where I work. But for now, until I finish this project that I'm working on, mad science, like, I'm not looking to do anything else. So
yeah, I understand. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but it's for me at least, I hate my day job sometimes. And what I do is I try to find small things that I really like about it, like the connections I made with some people, some friends. And as you said, like helping someone is like the main thing that keeps me in the job, that I have some opportunities to help some people. So that's what I try to focus on, and being appreciated. It's a great thing, and it's a rare thing. So I'm glad you at least have that there, right?
Yeah, and I got free reign of the 3D printers at work, so I print stuff for work, but I also get to experiment with 3D printing. So like
Nice,
that also gives me life, is I get to create objects with the press of a button.
Yeah,
so like...
and you like to experiment with things, so that's great.
Yeah.
Richie, this is our show, Word Games and Reader People. I hope you had a great time. I loved talking to you. Do you have any last word message you want to send out to the weirdos who listen to this?
Yeah, I think I really appreciate being here, Diogo, and I think that I'm glad you're finally doing this. I think everybody should go find another weirdo that is your friend, and I'm saying weirdo in the good way, not your friends are weird in good ways, and say, hey,
weird is new wonderful. Yeah,
you need to listen to this podcast. Just go to another person, one other person at least, if in person. Don't just, or in a direct chat to somebody. Don't just don't share it on your socials. Like, go to somebody personally and be like, hey, you should really listen to this show. I think you would really enjoy it, because even if they're not like super into RPGs, they just play a little bit. You get into very interesting subjects, the weird and the supernatural and all that stuff, and some of the other journey stuff. I think it's worth those people to go there. And I appreciate, I'm somewhat envious of you being this productive this early in your career. So like, I want everybody to benefit from it. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's weird. I'm trying to promote the podcast as an RPG podcast that's not really about RPGs, and I don't know how people will feel about it. But what I realized, it's when I went to Gen Con, I was like 8 months without being able to write properly or create anything. I was kind of in a burnout, and I came back all recharged, and I realized something that helped me was connecting to other creators, like talking to you, like sharing a meal or drinking a beverage, and just talking about life, talking about our experiences, how do we create stuff, what do we think about weird topics, so stuff that we like, or philosophy, or religion, spirituality, and helps us see each other as humans and make us see us as a part of a greater thing, I guess. and it really helped me becoming productive and becoming happy again for being part of this. So that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. And thank you a lot for trying to encourage people to talk about the podcast and talking to their friends. As I said, I don't know if it's a podcast that every player would like, but I think creative people and creators that are interesting in this human experience and resharing these stories and seeing how everybody sees weird in a different way, and everybody is so different, but in the same time, since everybody has these weird things happening to them, how we relate to each other, but because we can see ourselves in different situations because we are all going through different things, I guess, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense, and I definitely I too felt the after Gen Con bump. Like you get back from a convention or something else, and you talk to a bunch of people that are your friends, or you made new friends, and you're just revved up to get back going again. And then of course I got into way too much overtime after that for real work. So but I really appreciate your enthusiasm, and I think that people that listen to this show are going to have friends that are going to be like them, that they should talk to about this show. Because I definitely I've got a couple of things in the can to put out, and I've definitely recommended after you started for everybody to listen. So,
well, Richie, thank you very much. I loved the chat. So everybody at home, I hope you love it too. And remember, keep it weird, everybody. Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.